and welcome to Continuum, a podcast series by Careernet, where we try to unravel all the insights that make business success happen. Along with that, we try to navigate through the ever-changing landscape of recruitment industry. 2024 has seen a lot of transformational shifts within IT industry, and with today's podcast, we are trying to probably find out some of the imminent trends that are getting to be set to change this hiring landscape within IT services sector, and also try to discover some of the new challenges, opportunities that are also going to come by in this year in the same sector. And when we talk about transformations and when we talk about IT and IT services, and trying to understand this space more, I don't think there will be a better person to be our guest today than Mr. Harsha Goyal, who is the current Senior Vice President at Careernet. And he has a very interesting stint in his career where he's got a mix of both banking and recruitment expertise that he brings in. And he's been associated with Careernet for more than 14 years or so, and he has been instrumental in being part of some of the new initiatives that were kickstarted within Careernet, whether it would be semiconductor practice, or you have your RPO hiring, or with the recent consulting services that we are going to, or rather giving for IT and IT services. So a very warm welcome to you, Harsha.
Thanks, Gayatri.
Finally, we were able to get you for this podcast.
It's a pleasure.
So we are going to grill you with a lot of questions, which I think is running in everybody's mind these days. And we hope that you're able to give us positive and, a welcome or positive note, actually.
I'll try to keep it as realistic as possible.
Okay, so let's get the bull by the horn. So what do you think is how actually the IT industry and its job market evolving to change, or rather, I will say accommodate all these economic changes which are happening around us, especially this year?
So I think if you look at IT industry, I think it's not something which is new for IT industry. Since 80s and 90s, this industry has gone through a lot of transformation. But what happened in COVID in 2020 was unprecedented. We've seen recessions in the past, right?
Correct.
And those recessions usually last for 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. And it's very easy to kind of put a predictability in terms of what's going to happen next. What happened in 2020 changed the entire landscape. Just before COVID started, I think the market was kind of going fine. Things were looking okay. It was a status quo and things were looking fine.
Correct.
Suddenly, somebody pressed the pedal and everything stopped. The first question that came to my mind was, what's going to happen next? I mean, is there an end to this?
Correct.
And the larger ecosystem was kind of, while it was figuring out how do we put an end to this, suddenly there was a need of digitalization that came out very pronounced way across the industry. And if you look at it that way, earlier to COVID, I think a lot of traditional businesses and the way things were working were not digitalized, right? The way we were making payments, the way we were shopping, while there was an Amazon and Flipkart, But if you like your favorite sweet in Lucknow, you cannot order sitting in Bangalore. Today, I mean, you could do anything and everything, and that's the kind of wave that this entire digitalization has taken up.
On a positive note.
Yes. But having said that, for the organizations, it was not easy. They had never done this kind of a hiring at this massive scale.
Correct.
And this kind of scale that got picked up after the first wave of COVID. A lot of people got hired. There was larger need in terms of upskilling, reskilling. There were new technologies coming. There were new challenges coming. And at the same time, what also happened is a lot of GCC investment also started picking up. Now, traditionally, if you look at it, the way things have always been, it's IT services. There were a lot of business that would get outsourced to them. They would deliver. They are the pioneers in terms of setting up the entire ecosystem, hiring talent, training them, and etc. Now, a lot of these global organizations have started setting shops in India. Now, because of that, the entire technology landscape is also changing. And clubbed to the fact that after COVID, a lot of this talent, kind of spread across the nation, right?
Correct.
There were pools that gotten created,
Right.
and so companies decided that why do we need to bring all of them back to their locations? Why can we not go and set up operations there? So a lot of tier 2, tier 3 locations, if you look at it today, a lot of organizations are setting up shops.
Right.
So, in my opinion, the way things are, it's just another transition that is happening. And once this is done, things will come back much stronger than how things were, creating larger and more opportunities for everybody.
So do you think, Harsha, at the new digitization that you mentioned, new technologies that are coming in, if you talk about AI or any of it, do you think it's impacting? Do you see it is actually impacting all the hiring strategies and decisions that are being taken within the IT industry?
I would not call it impacting. Look, so what has happened is there's a sudden change in the ship in the frame. Now, in one sense, if you look at it, the earlier organizations were creating a lot of benches because there was a predictability of what kind of skills would be needed. So let me hire those skills.
Right.
And any which ways, after the onboarding is done, there's some training elements, and a lot of businesses are in a baking process. A lot of clients are still getting discussed, so we will deploy and get things started. I think with COVID, what has happened, there's a sudden change in terms of demand is there, but digitalization also has gotten new added flavors because with the GCC setting up operations in India, a lot of new skills have come in. And these skills and the way market is transforming, there is a very different wave in terms of technology that is coming in. So that typically is defining the rest of the frame for the industry.
So Harsha, we discussed that in especially during COVID time, we have seen a lot of change in your traditional, skill sets and roles. So do you see any new skill sets getting preferred in the IT industry in the current scheme of things? Is there any change in the roles and skill sets that is needed?
So honestly, I think AI is the flavor of the season. More so, and it's a very evolved kind of a way in which the technology is kind of evolving. If you look back, 90s, it was all the core skills that were the flavor of the season because core Java, .NET, Microsoft skills, and so a lot of people got trained in these skills from colleges, and that's how they got into the IT industry. And then came a phase wherein the entire automation drive started. And then after that, there were full stacks.
Correct.
Now, after full stacks, there was a cloud. From the cloud, we kind of transformed into data sciences, now AI. So I think things have been progressing. One of the other salient feature in which I think a lot of companies are thinking is cybersecurity. That's another area which is gaining a lot of momentum because everybody wants to safeguard and be in a secured environment. So all in all, if you look at it, I think product, cybersecurity, AI, data sciences, machine learning, full stacks would continue to be the flavor. And I think this is going to be more or less the trend in terms of where the industry would kind of move.
So Harsh, I think because of all these changes, there will be a lot of, I think, skill gap which exists within the industry, and a lot of upskilling and reskilling needs to be done, especially for mid-level and senior level. So do you see that organizations are taking any steps to bridge this gap?
So like I said, the entire journey that the IT industry has taken, I think we've seen a lot of phases in which this has gotten done. Last, I remember when the entire full stack journey was getting created, there were folks available on front end and back end independently, but then there were not too many people who were typically doing this. When cloud came in, AI, ML, I think this is just a transformation phase. And today there are enough avenues in the market. There was a point in time when companies did take a lot of initiative in terms of reskilling and upskilling people because there were not enough talent pool available on specific skills. So you always tend to look at the nearest skill and see how do I bridge the gap. The other interesting element that has started coming into play is the campuses. And a lot of these organizations are working very closely with campuses to redefine the curriculum, include some of these skills in the curriculum so that there is a larger exposure being given from day one. And a lot of places you see hire, train and deploy models getting incorporated, wherein you hire a talent, train them, and then deploy them. Having said that, at a mid and senior level, I think by then, in my opinion, what happens is the person has already worked on a certain skill set. I think what makes sense there is to look at what is the overall feeler in terms of what the person really wants to do. There's enough work available, and not everybody needs to get reskilled.
Correct.
But having said that, there are places with and avenues available for somebody to get identify the right courses to take. There are there are institutes who are offering full-time and part-time courses. There are organizations who are also working hand in hand in terms of providing the right gaps fulfillment. So there's enough that is there, and one need not look at this as a threat in terms of redefining or looking at what is the future of my job.
Correct.
It's another feather that is getting added in the cap, and you need to decide whether you like the color of the feather or you want to retain your own flavor and add on to more in that flavor to stay relevant in the industry.
True, and I think that is more needed, especially for mid and senior level,
Correct.
to avoid stagnancy in their role. So I think one more aspect, Harsha, which we'll have to see is that diversity and inclusion has, I think, recently gained a lot of prominence within the IT sector.
Correct.
So do you think that in their recruitment strategies itself, organizations have started incorporating it and ensuring that it is met in their hiring needs?
So, I'm very glad that there is a lot of awareness that has come in now in terms of this entire diversity and inclusion topic. I remember early 2010, this entire topic of diversity would typically mean only women hire.
Correct.
And there were a lot of organizations running programs on returning mothers. There were programs in terms of hiring more women from campuses and etc.
Right.
But I think today we are topping at a very diverse topic, which includes LGBTQ, which includes PWD, which includes women hires. And there's a lot of work that has gotten done till the last mile. And it is not just for the recruitment teams or business teams. For the overall inclusion, a lot of work has been done across teams and a lot of programs have gotten done. Having said that, I think the way things have gotten transformed and they started getting transformed is that for businesses as well as recruitment teams, now there are SLAs and KPIs getting defined.
Okay.
Project teams are going back and looking at their internal structures and figuring out what are the gaps that are there. The entire demand sheet is getting relooked at and specific demands are getting highlighted where they'll be wanting to do only diversity or inclusion hiring. There are specific vendors, there is specific hiring programs. So there's enough and more that is needed to be done. But as a first step, a lot of things are getting done. And it is not just the forcefulness in terms of that you have to do this. People are trying to do this by will that, yeah, this is something that is really needed. And there's a lot of conscious effort that is coming in that is changing the entire landscape. To an extent that earlier when companies used to go to campuses, this would not be one of the reference points for hiring.
Correct.
Now, one way to look at it is I want to add more into the source mix or into the diversity mix. Okay. The other way to look at it is in order to retain the quality, the companies are also okay to look at the diverse and broader base of campuses to cover. So a lot of work in terms of research is going in terms of which are the right campuses, which are the right time frame to go to these campuses. It is not just the campus season wherein go and attend colleges and hire people and come in.
True.
So across levels, starting at a campus level to a mid and senior level, a lot of effort is being put. There's always a supply and demand gap, and at least more prominent from today's perspective. But I'm sure the kind of efforts that are going at an early campus and early talent level, with times to come, that gap would largely get fulfilled. And I think we are all hoping for the best.
True. I think hope is something what
yes.
life depends on. So Harsha, we I think discussed that how these new technologies are influencing the recruitment industry. But if you could also talk something on what the recruiters should expect on all these new changes happening and technologies coming. Do you think there any changes is going to happen per se with respect to recruiters?
Absolutely. I think with the COVID, post-COVID, I think a lot of things have changed both for the businesses, hiring teams, recruitment, candidates. Earlier, we used to see larger weekend events for hiring and etc. All that has gotten transformed into lobby interviews. the virtual interviews.
Correct.
There are specific platforms which have now come out because with the remote interviews bring their own set of challenges in terms of impersonation, lip sync. There are issues with terms of identity, misrepresentation, and etc. And there are enough and more challenges, and the people are also getting very creative with multiple cameras, multiple devices, and etc. So I think I'm happy and glad that a lot of work is happening in this field, and a lot of platforms are now coming out which are proctored to address these issues. And one other very interesting element is that earlier recruiters could work in isolation. Right? This is my demand, this is my hiring manager, this is my candidate, and I can work in isolation. I think in future, the way I look at it is it will all get transformed into one single cohesive environment running on one single platform. And I do not even foresee resumes being the flavor. I think it will all be a talent which is available. A registry gets created into the system saying, basis I'm interested in this particular opportunity. There'll be enough and more need for organizations to brand themselves and to brand the kind of work that they're doing, the kind of skills that they're wanting to have, why are they wanting to hire. People will apply. And then AI will take care of the rest in terms of auto screening, auto scheduling, and that's typically what's going to be the flavor. So we are slowly and swiftly moving into that direction. And I always say this, and this is one of the classics, that the best ATS ever gotten produced by anybody was Excel. And I'm glad that we are moving out of that entire framework, because what ATSs could not do is something that I think this entire environment is doing in terms of platform, because there's definitely a need. Today, when you look at everything getting digitalized, how can recruitment be manual and ops be only manual? So I think it's very imperative this entire environment has to get digitalized. And for the candidates also, getting multiple calls from multiple stakeholders, not knowing who's doing what, what's the next step. I think once everybody comes on board on one single platform, everything runs, and it becomes more of a self-service wherein a control, you're going to pass it on to the candidate, because ultimately it is the career decision from the candidate, and everybody else is just advertising and making things happen.
Just connecting the dots.
Correct.
So Harsha, we discussed a lot of things that are in due to change, or we are expecting, or something which has already happened. But do you still see that there are still some major hiring challenges which IT sector is facing? And if you can also take us through maybe some of your suggestions or recommendations for them to be managing these challenges.
I think while things are evolving, I prominently see two salient places wherein a lot of effort is definitely needed. One is predominantly how we perceive the overall hiring. We need to start looking at this as more skill oriented and more control to be given to the candidates, wherein everybody has to play their due role. We need to start moving away from the traditional methods of doing recruitment, wherein somebody is sourcing resumes and etc. Having said that, I think one of the very elementary thing that is going to happen is these days, if you look at it, no matter whether you are an established organization in the market or you're a new organization in the market, with changing technologies, changing times, you have to come out and again reiterate in terms of what you're doing. You need to keep telling the market in terms of what exactly is happening and how do you stay relevant for the organization, and what is organization doing to stay relevant in the market.
True.
So in that sense, the entire employer branding becomes very critical, and this is not just for the lateral market, even for the campus market. It is very important that campuses and organizations connect at a very early stage. Secondly, the way things are getting digitalized, I think we need to immediately start moving towards these platforms and embrace these platforms, start working and digitalizing this so that there's a predictability that starts coming in. And see, a lot of these times you've seen that one of the challenges that we face is sudden scale up or scale down.
Correct.
Right. There's a lot of effort that goes in terms of making a machinery up and running and suddenly stopping the machinery. So in order to reduce the friction, I think the digitalization would typically help, because
it would give more predictability.
Correct, predictability, and it would typically help in terms of connecting to the larger talent ecosystem that is available. So I think I definitely see these two elements. Third is what we need to also start looking at is see, a lot of these times, what we do not see is for interviewers, there is enough and more happening in their life. Right? In the last few minutes, we've spoken about how the technology is changing. The only person that gets impacted in my head is not just the recruiter, but also the business guy, right? The guy has to spend a lot of time in terms of staying relevant into the market,
Correct.
Reskilling, upskilling, no matter which context we look at it. And at the same time, we're expecting a lot of interviews to be taken and etc. I think I see there is a huge shift in terms of looking at interviewing as a service as a major need. I think that is going to evolve further, wherein with these platforms, I think that would also become one of the standard features,
Correct.
wherein once registry has gotten created, an auto scheduling and auto interviewing, not just with the internal folks, but also from an external person to kind of qualify and vet the resume in terms of looking at overall holistically mapping with respect to the skill set. So there is enough and more happening, and with changing times, we have to also change the gears and be prepared for what's going to come.
So I think this will be the most interesting question, which I think everybody will is wanting to know, is that for all those IT professionals who are trying to look out for jobs in this dynamic, condition of the market, what would be your advice to them?
I think they should be really glad and ecstatic. And I'm very serious about it. Every time there is a transformation that has happened, a transition that has happened, more job opportunities have gotten created, more avenues have gotten created.
True.
When this entire market was shifting from manual testing to automation testing, there was a lot of questions asked. There were a lot of conversations on future of jobs and etc. And today we see there are new technologies, new avenues. And like I said, it should be really something to look forward to. Having said that, I think one must keep the entire effort in terms of staying relevant for the industry.
Correct.
And do what you feel is right for your career. Think what is your interest. Don't just go with the wave that since everybody is doing AI, ML, data science, so unless I do it, it's the end of my career. Not everybody is going to do that. So if somebody is working with AI, ML, there's definitely need for rest of the folks to work on the rest of the stack and the product and other elements that come in as a form. So what one needs to continue to question himself or herself in terms of what is the real interest area and pursue that interest. I mean, be it technology or non-technology, it does not matter. Today we're talking about AI, ML. Tomorrow we may talk about something else.
Correct.
So, but what stays relevant is how do you see yourself, and professionally, what do you really want to do? If something you're doing continues to interest you, and go with the flow, you get more information and upskilled. Reskilling is not the answer to all the questions. Sometimes keeping pace to the changing environment also helps.
So thank you so much, Harsha, for giving us your interesting perspectives today. And we thank you for your time as well. I hope you were also able to have a good time by sharing these insights with us. Thank you again so much for your time.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
And to all of you, I'm sure that this podcast you were able to highlight some of the burning questions that you are having around what is exactly happening in the IT industry, what sort of roles should I look out for. And I think the best is one of the quotes that Jim Rohn says, who's our author and motivational speaker, that your life does not get better because of chance. It gets better because of change. And let's hope that all these changes that we spoke about gives us all positive avenues to talk about in the coming days. Thank you so much, and do stay tuned for more interesting podcasts coming your way.